Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today.
Welcome, author.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I have author, mostly fantasy author, correct?
Yep, that's right. Although I've written a little of everything, but fantasy is kind of my latest gig, I should say.
Okay. Author Slade, fantasy author Slade, here all the way from Canada, am I right?
That's right. Yeah, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which some people don't believe exists, but really it does.
Oh, it does. So you're not like a fairy or a goblin or an elf or anything like that. You're a real person.
Nothing like that. Although I should say that Saskatoon, Saskatchewan is sometimes the punchline of a joke that goes around Canada when people get off a train and they ask the first person, where are we? They go Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And the person gets back on the train and says to his wife, where are we? And he goes, I don't know. They don't speak English.
Okay. I do know people from Toronto. I think I have heard that joke. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're okay with it.
It's very beautiful there. So
it is a nice city. Yeah, actually, it's on a river. We like to call it the Paris of the prairies, but we don't have an Eiffel Tower or anything like that.
Well, prairies sound beautiful, so I would think it would be a lot of inspiration there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I grew up on a ranch, kind of in the southwest of Saskatchewan, and there's one thing, I guess, when you live, where there's nobody. I guess 2 or 3 miles is kind of the closest neighbor. You tend to have a lot of time on your own when you're a kid. So I think that actually really helped my imagination grow.
So have you always written?
I have since, I guess I've always been creative because I still have stories that I wrote in grade 5 and grade 8 and those sorts of that kind of time period. But I don't think I really took it serious. Like I was a big reader, so it just seemed natural to me. So,
Right.
well, if I'm going to read these things, I might as well write my own stuff. And plus, I played Dungeons and Dragons and read The Hobbit and all those sorts of things. But it wasn't really until I was in grade 11, or I think if I was saying it the American way, it's 11th grade, right? So don't want to confuse anybody. But when I was in grade 11, my English teacher made us all write a short story, and mine was like some horrible title like Under Heaven, Over Hell or something like that, just really get the teacher's attention. But I got 100%, and I thought, oh well, maybe this is an okay career. I didn't realize that you don't actually get paid for quite a while, but that really did make me take it seriously, that I should kind of start thinking about this as maybe a career, although it took a long time to actually make a living at it.
Okay, and so do you have an English degree?
I did. Yeah, I did get an English degree at the University of Saskatchewan, which is also real. I just want to say. And it's funny because my kind of memory of course, it's a long time since I was in grade 12, kind of thinking, what am I going to do with my life? But my memory of getting my 4-year English degree was really, I just need some space to start working on my writing. And so I'll just pretend, but I mean, I took my classes and got, passing grades and all that. But it was really just kind of I was hoping this next leap would be writing after that, but no, I had to get a job and all those sorts of things in advertising for several years, which in the end was helpful for me.
Right. Yeah, you have to make money sometimes and launch your career.
Yeah.
Right? All those budding ideas take time to take form. Well, jump us into, I was looking on your website and it looks like your Dragons Assassin series. The artwork is amazing. I didn't even read the blurb. I was just looking at all the artwork. So jump me into that world.
Yeah, well, the idea, I really wanted, I'd only written one fantasy novel before this, and this is, I think Dragon Assassin was like my 25th novel, I think. And so I'd always loved fantasy, but never really been brave enough to write it. I had to do research, and kind of more serious. Not that fantasy isn't serious, but once I started to think about, well, I really want to write a fantasy novel. I also just kind of came up with something ludicrous in the sense of what's really going to get people's attention? Well, dragons do and assassins do. I'll just say, well, dragon assassin. I'll just stick that together. And it's one of the few novels now series that I've written where the idea, just the title was kind of the inspiration for the story, which didn't normally how it goes. But I just thought, well, what's more dangerous than and it's an assassin in my novel who rides a dragon. And once I kind of had that idea, and she's also an assassin who's going to assassin school, and I started to think, well, everybody else in the assassin school when they're training, they train to ride these giant black swans that arrive silently on a castle, and they can sneak in, and well, they're assassins, so they do bad things and then sneak out. But she ends up through a series of events getting a dragon, and so all of this is kind of her starting kind of starting her career at the same time that the emperor has decided that assassins should all be eliminated, and so now she has to flee basically and figure out how to take on the empire. So that was kind of the basic impetus of the series. And I don't know, I for me it was just I wanted to have fun, I wanted to have adventure, and that's really what it was for, what I was getting out of it, and I hope the readers are getting that too.
It does sound like a lot of fun. So the assassins are now being hunted. Were they assassinating for the emperor in the beginning?
Yeah, they were like the emperor had, of course, hired them throughout time, and there's 5 other realms. So it was, that's kind of how they would do their job, and it's kind of funny in a way because there's not a lot of assassinations in the story, because once it turns into once they're the empire's after you, well, you don't have time to go killing people. You're running and figuring out how you're going to survive and that sort of thing. But what happened was kind of a power shift. The emperor had used the assassins to get rid of all the magicians and wizards in the country, and so now they were gone. The emperor realized, hey, wait a sec, there's one other powerful group, we should get rid of them. And so that's kind of why he was doing that.
Interesting. Yeah, so the age old, nobody can be more powerful than me, so I have to get rid of anybody that's more powerful than, or could be more powerful than I am. Interesting.
Yeah, and he keeps his own assassins, on his side, kind of thing. So,
well, we have to have assassins to kill the assassins, right? But then
you see, you've practically written the whole book right there.
This is the ever-ending circle, or never-ending circle, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it was kind of it was fun to have that kind of adventure, and that the whole idea of everything just being torn apart and you have to flee. And then through each book, starting to put the world back together again.
Okay. And so do we follow just one character throughout all of these books, or do we follow different characters? Is this first person, third person? Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's the first 5 books. And believe me, when I started writing, I thought, well, I'll write 3. That seemed like a good number. But nope, it turned into 5. It's all first person, and it's told from the main character's point of view. But her side, not really a sidekick, I should say partner, the dragon that she eventually partners with is, I don't know, he's the most fun I've ever had with a character. He hates humans. She kind of she kind of tricks him in a way into swearing that he will let her ride on him and help her survive all these things that are going on. It's only because he's trapped in a cave that she's able to kind of do this. And he hates all humans, kind of hates her, but he also loves reading books and loves reading human books, and he's got all these he knows everything about their culture, and at the same time doesn't like them at all. And so he's just this grouchy, very intelligent and very sassy dragon that she has to ride around and somehow survive.
Okay, and does this dragon talk to her like in real life voices, or
Yep.
okay?
Yeah, he's kind of like Smog or Smaug. I never know which the J.R. Tolkien pronunciation is the correct one. I'm sure everybody else will know that, but I don't. And so it's just, I mean, it makes their whole relationship that much easier. But as time goes on, he actually begins to talk in her mind too. So it's kind of a new net. Humans and dragons have never talked like this before, and it's kind of well, it's not convoluted, but the reason that happens is she has actually lost an eye when she was younger, and part of her deal with him is to get one of his eyes, and so she has a dragon eye. So when you look at the cover, you'll see that in the first cover, her eye is covered, but in the next cover, her eye actually is a dragon eye, and her other eye is a human eye, and so that starts to form this kind of strange. I'm going to say biochemical, but that's the wrong word. Kind of bond between them, and so he starts seeing things that she sees, and so there's just this connection that grows through each book.
And does she have any magic? Or obviously the dragon is powerful. Is the dragon just the same size as her?
No, he's big. He's bigger. He's not a huge dragon, but he's big enough that she can ride on him easily.
Because if she can take his eye, I don't know how that works. But anyway, we'll pretend it does.
Yeah. It's all explained in chapter number 7. But yeah. So, but it's just, I really love their relationship, and he is not. He's not a nice guy. Let's put it that way. And yet he's one of those. He's got kind of real truth to him, and he sticks to his word no matter what, kind of thing. And so you really respect him. At the same time, you don't want to be too close to him sometimes.
Yeah. Does he breathe fire too?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he breathes fire, and of course he has sharp talons and all that sort of thing too. There's different types of dragons. What he likes to say is the more kind of slick, smart kind of dragon, as opposed to the giant dragons that they use to, attack armies and that sort of thing. He's the one who does all the thinking. Is dangerous in that way.
About himself, right?
Yeah. So and his name is Brax. So you can tell I quite like the character. In fact, so much that when I got done the 5 books, the 6th book is the start of a new series, and it's all from his point of view. And he's so sarcastic, it's horrible. I highly recommend never reading it, because he's just so, well, he's not rude. Rude isn't the right word, because these are for what I thought was a younger audience, and it ended up being, reading it. But so when I say he's rude, he's just mean, but not he's not swearing or anything like that.
Okay, like dad humor, rude, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he's not afraid to make fun of people.
Okay, and so it is a middle grade book, is that correct?
Yeah, when I wrote it, the first one, it's funny, because I thought of it as kind of grade 10, or not grade 10, 10 and up is kind of where I was aiming for, and it went through, because I both self-publish and publish with publishers. Kind of that hybrid author thing. It was picked up by, first I self-published it in the States and in the UK, but then I sold it to Scholastic in Canada. And so in Canada, it's all, grade 5, 6, 7, those are the people who are reading it. And yet when I put it up on Amazon in the States, I was really kind of surprised, because I do a lot of advertising, that the people who were buying it were all 40, 30, 40, 50, even into their 80s, people who are and I know this partly because of Facebook advertising, but also because they'd send me letters and go, I'm 75 years old and I really love this book. And so I think there's just enough complexity, and there's enough danger in it that it feels dangerous. There's enough action, but it's not over the top. There's I don't even know. I can't think if there's even a kiss or anything like that. There's kind of suggested romance, but nothing too blatant.
That sounds a lot of fun. I mean, the cover art definitely looks like she's an adult character. Is that true? But then
well, she's 16, right? So she kind of, but she does, and it's curious too, if you ever see, the Scholastic cover art, she looks way younger, and she looks like she's 13 or 14, and then it just skews older for the covers that I had done for the American and UK audience, and that was also a choice to make it look a bit older and attract that audience. And I was just so happy that it found the right people.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like a lot of fun. And I am right there with you. Like I can never let go of my characters. So
Yeah.
what is the second series going to be called with the dragon?
So it's called I Brax, and I as in he's talking about himself, I Brax, and then it's a dragon assassin adventure. And so it's just, I mean, it's all from his point of view and him pontificating about how great dragons are, and meanwhile, helping Carmen through the mortal world. But I don't know. It's for me, it was because I had so much joy writing him as kind of a side character, not from his point of view. But now that I'm in his point of view, it's even more fun.
That does sound like it. So does that continue the story? This kind of the timeline?
Yeah, it does. Like you could pick up Ibrax and it kind of explains enough that you don't, well, I prefer people read all the books, of course, but I mean, that's what we authors do, right? But there's enough there that you can just carry on. But it does, there's the 5 books, it starts almost immediately after them.
Okay. And you said all the witches and the magicians are gone. Do we get any of those back? Is that
we do, yeah. As each in the Dragon Assassin books, as each book progresses. So the first book is set in kind of the normal mortal world, and then the second one, Carmen actually has to go with Brax to the dragon world, which is another country, because he wants her to assassinate somebody there, a dragon. So it's going to be a tough job. And then in the third one, you actually discover that the magicians, the wizards and witches are still alive, and there are a certain number of them who fled, and they have their own island where they all have because wizards and witches don't like to be around other people, have their own autonomous little kingdoms that they each run, which will have maybe just animals, or maybe they'll have a few slaves here and there, that sort of thing. And then eventually they discover too that there's a whole other land, giants, which it isn't until the 4th book. So they're kind of, it's for me, it was discovery too, because I'm just writing it, and I will admit that I didn't plan it all out. It kind of all works, but for me, it was all, oh well, this would be so great to have some giants now, and suddenly that's where the book goes.
I was going to say, so you didn't do that much research to plan out the whole series before you started.
No, it's really, I have so much respect for people, and I mean, who do a lot of that research and have it all figured out beforehand. But for me as the writer, I really wanted, maybe galloping is maybe the right word. I just wanted to gallop along, or wing along is probably a better word for the type of book it is. And so part of that was, I thought in my writing process, I didn't want to slow down. Like I didn't want to slow down and start researching a whole bunch of things like I would normally do, because I've written books that are set in Victorian England, and then you read every book set in Victorian England, and there's a lot of time invested, which I love doing that because it makes the world so rich. But for here, it was just, there was kind of this joy of discovery, and just having the story pull me ahead and get to the end of the story, and then add the details later that I hope make the world rich enough for people.
Right. Yeah, that's what I love about writing. Like if I had like every bit of my outline like filled in, I would not want to do it. I would just stop because I'm not having any fun if I'm not creating what happens next. So
I totally agree. It feels like it's done. Well, I know how that ends.
Yeah, I know what's going to happen. So why would I even do it now?
Yeah, but I'm amazed by authors. I have a friend like this who, like, he plots everything out. He knows everything that's going to happen, and then he'll write the chapter he wants to. So he'll write chapter 1, and then he'll write chapter 12. And I think I want to do this scene, and can kind of jump around. And for me, it's just, well, how do we even know? I wouldn't have met those characters yet. So far, I think that method probably is the kind of more sure way to know what's going to happen. But so far this method has worked for me. So
well, I was going to say, if it's working and people are loving your books, that's what's important.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And how fast are you getting these books out?
I probably, well, I should say that the first one came out 4 years ago, I guess. So it's been at least one every year, or kind of one and a half or a quarter is about how much. That's about how fast I can write. I do read because I get kind of jealous of when you read self-published authors. A lot of them can really, get novels out very quickly, which is absolutely, I have full respect for that. And I keep trying to do that, but it's just like, no, I just have to think about this a little bit longer. Or there's, something else comes up. So it seems to have worked out, because I know that sometimes it's good to release everything kind of at the same time, but I don't know. This was just the right pace for me.
Right, fun. So the Dragon's Assassin is a complete series now, though,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Number 1 to 5 is complete. So yeah, and then of course then I just continue
That's
on.
important to some people. Some people want the whole thing done so they don't have to wait
Yeah.
for the next book.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny how, and I'm sure you get emails like this too, like people going, well, okay, I like, I started reading this and I like it, but is it all done?
Yeah, because
And
I'm not going to go on until
no,
you finish the whole thing, and then I'll come back to it.
no, that's right. And those are great when it is all done, but when you're just on the first book, you go, oh, well, you got a little bit of a wait. Sorry.
A little pressure on that, especially if you're like, I don't really know where this series ends.
Yeah. No, that's correct.
Do you always know the end of your book before you start writing, or sometimes you figure out the ending?
I don't always know the end. I kind of, it's like I have a hint of a feeling of where it's going to go, but it's often not until I'm about, half the way through before that final scene. But because by the time you get to halfway, for me, those characters are all kind of in play, and I can kind of see where they're going, and then I can see the ending. But it's both fun and frightening, those first, writing the first half of the book and not being sure how it ends, because it's like, am I going to be able to pull this off again this time? It worked out last time, but yeah, it works out, but it also, that's what rewriting does, right? I get to the end, and sometimes the ending isn't right, and I have to, throw a bunch of stuff out, and that's where people who plotted things out are probably the winners for that.
Or maybe not, or maybe it ends up wrong when you plot it out too. Who
Yeah,
knows?
that's right.
So you started with this idea of this title, The Dragon's Assassin. How did you decide to make it a female character that was about 16 and first person point of view?
Yeah, I think part of it was just was thinking about audience and thinking about who was reading it. So I want, and also I wanted her to be graduating, so she needed to be, you graduate at 16 in this college. So those were kind of the things that just kind of popped into my head and made me think, well, that's about how old I want her to be. I chose female, partly because I have a previous series to this called the Hunchback Assignments, which is set in Victorian England, and it's about a spy who is also a hunchback, and he changes his shape, but he's male. And so it's a male, it's not a very male story, because there's all, of course, powerful women in it and that sort of thing. But I just wanted to, it felt more natural to be writing, from the female point of view for this series, and the relationship with the dragon. It seemed right, and not that it's not like a romantic relationship or anything like that. He's kind of like a really grumpy uncle figure, really. Do I have to explain the world to you again? That kind of figure. So it just seemed kind of natural for me to gravitate towards that character. And she just, again, she just kind of came out. I didn't have to do a lot of work with her, in the sense of I just had this image of her missing an eye. And of course I started thinking, well, how did that happen? Well, it was her twin brother who did it. And why did he do that? And well, they were battling to become the number one assassin and this kind of thing.
Oh, interesting. That does put a lot of layers in that.
Yeah.
Fun. And so so I guess this was like a typical thing people did in that world, was become assassin, right?
Yeah. And for both of them, they were actually abandoned in front of the assassin school by their parents. And so the assassin, they're one of the few who are actually raised by the assassins and eventually, become assassins themselves. But everybody else kind of comes there from other realms to learn the skill of being an assassin. And it's prestigious, right? Because, unfortunately, you have to kill people, but you also make a lot of money, and people look up to you, or else they don't know who you are at all, because you're the one sneaking around doing these things. So, it was just, it was kind of fun playing with the whole the mythology, the history of the school and that sort of thing, and then have it all come crashing down.
Interesting. And I'm guessing there's like Middle Ages technology. Is that sort of what the world is?
Yeah, very much. Everybody has a sword, they have a bow, that sort of thing. There, and it's wagons. There's nothing more complicated than that. There isn't gunpowder yet, but there's magic. So there are, of course, the wizards throwing fireballs and that sort of thing. But there isn't any kind of huge technology that gets in the way of the adventure.
Oh, fun. Well, I think we touched on how you got here as an author. One question I love to ask my authors is, and I think you've already answered this and I know the answer, but if there's one overarching thing that you want people to come away from your books, what would you say? Like the experience you want them to have?
Yeah, I think, what I think about is I think about back when I was in fourth grade, and I can still kind of see this, whether it really happened this way, but our teacher at that time pulls out The Hobbit, and I'd never heard of it, knew nothing about it, and starts reading it to us. And I just have this memory. I can still feel myself in that desk, right? Of just falling into the book. It's just amazing. There's hobbits, there's spiders, there's dwarves, they're having this adventure. And so I think for me, that's the most important thing. I want people to fall into the book and to escape the other world, the world we're in a sense, but also have it reflected back to them, but not in a way that makes them, that's too kind of present, And so I just that whole idea and I guess if I would simplify it is, I want them to fall into the book and have an adventure along with the characters.
Well, it does sound like you have that adventure spirit, and I can definitely even get that feeling from you just talking to you. So
yeah.
What's coming next? When does Ibrax come out?
So Ibrax will be out at the end of October. And after that, well, I have to write the next one at the next one. But I also have and please don't laugh at this book. No, oh, you can if you want, because I gotta laugh.
I'm trying really hard right now.
I'm working on a series because I like heavy metal and I like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm working on a series that is called Metal Loria, Highway to Hades. And it's all about people. It's all about characters. I have to contact Iron Maiden themselves to get trademark or to get permission for this. It's about a group of 5 people who go to an Iron Maiden concert and they get electrocuted and zapped to another world. That is kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons world, except it's all kind of these heavy metal tropes. Everybody got long hair and they not only do they have, bows and swords and that sort of thing, but they have to survive by singing and everybody has this kind of special power playing guitar and it's incredibly silly. It has all these references to 1980s heavy metal music that in this fantasy world, and I had so much fun writing it. Whether other people will want to read it or not, I don't know. I'm hoping it's a story that reaches out to other people too, and isn't just me going, oh, it was so great when I listened to all those bands and played D&D.
It sounds amazing. It sounds like, what am I thinking? Like slap happy science fiction almost.
Yeah, I know. It's just, and again, kind of like these other books, I wanted it to be fun. That's what I wanted to be. This another adventure and lots of fun.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what the title of this book was. Another author, it was like the Time Warp Burrito or something.
Oh.
Like it just sounds like that, fun, off the wall. How do you get a technology that grabs you into this other world of heavy metal?
Yeah.
And all of us from the 80s are going to flock to it, right?
Absolutely. There'll be so many references.
I'm seeing a trivia game with this book. Can you develop a trivia game for me based on this book?
Yeah, I'll do that too. Even part of it, this is the strange part, is developing a game with the book that I don't, because there's a gaming system within the world that these people are figuring out that they're in a game, in this alternate world. And so I don't know that I'll ever develop to the point where people actually play it, but developing the rules so that they work within the story. And so it's like what do they call it? Lit RPG, literature based on role-playing games. Right. And so that's kind of the idea behind it. So So I think the trivia might be easier than the than actually writing out all the rules of any kind of D&D like heavy metal game.
Yeah, well, I love how your mind works. It seems to work really fast because I tried to play D&D with my sons and I totally failed. Like my brain does not work fast enough. I mean, obviously I write books, but I must be
Yeah.
really slow because my brain doesn't work fast enough for me to figure out what to do next. And maybe I was just getting in my own way, like I was being too self-conscious about whether I did it right or wrong. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I failed. I was like, sorry guys, I'm out.
No, that's okay. That's I understand that. And it is a very it's a complicated, it's like a simple game, but also complicated. It's like, oh, this is all happening in my head, but also there's all these rules. And so I every once in a while, it reminds me a little bit of one of my cousins who when we were kids, I made all my cousins play, and she's still, she's like 50 now, and goes, oh, remember when you made me play that stupid game, Dungeons and Dragons? It still bugs me. It's like, oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, I felt like not so smart when I was playing with them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, fine. Tell everyone where we can find you and your upcoming alternate reality heavy metal game.
Well, just arthurslade.com, and everything is on there. All the connections, if people want to go find me on Facebook and Twitter, X, whatever that's called these days. And so that's the easiest place to find me. And if you go there, I also have a newsletter that I put out too intermittently. I know I'm supposed to put it out sooner than I do, but it's summertime.
It's summertime. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I hope everyone goes to authorslade.com and grabs your books because they sound super fun.
Oh, well, thank you so much for talking to me.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.